it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I have an amazing guest, and for those of you who are just tuning in, this is one of my favorite times of year. It is our seventh annual nonprofit series when we highlight a variety of different nonprofits that are making an impact and doing wonderful things around the globe. And damn it, this brings me a lot of joy, period. But today I was introduced through a client of mine because I believe with high value relationships. So when you want great connections, ask the great people you know. Nancy Economou is the founder and CEO of Watts of Love. She's the recipient of the 2024 Red Cross Global Citizens Award. Nancy is a leader, CEO, inventor, and public speaker. She's the founder and CEO of Watts of Love, as I said, a global nonprofit with a mission to break the cycle of poverty through financial literacy and solar lights to nearly 1 billion people living without electricity. Nancy identified a surprising, simple solution to end poverty. She designed and patented, a smart woman, immediately got a patent, love it, unique, durable, and long-lasting solar light with education model that teaches how this light is the key to unlocking self-worth and financial freedom. Watts of Love is a third world communities and how solar light and financial literacy training can alleviate poverty in one generation. I think this, Nancy, what you're doing is absolutely fabulous. I can't wait for our listeners who have tuned into the nonprofit series for years to really learn more. I have to start at the beginning. How did this get started? Where did this come from? Where did the idea come from? Why you? Why? How this?
Great. Well, thank you, Ivy. Right. Thank you so much for having me. My background is in high-end jewelry sales. I was a stay-at-home mom for years, and I had the opportunity to go to the Philippines in 2009. And when I was there, I was very curious how people were living. And I went to a feeding program where I saw a young girl whose face was all burnt. And the teachers had told me that this happens all the time. Children are burnt because they don't have electricity and they use kerosene. So this was the first time I had seen something like that. And then really just started thinking like, wow, what's it like to live in darkness and all of the consequences of that situation.
So obviously you burn kerosene for light in your home. Especially in lower areas without lower economic areas, no electricity, etc. And it causes a lot of fires. And people and children were getting hurt badly.
Yes. And so I realized, that children were being burnt, that, women were stuck in this cycle of poverty because 30% of their income was going towards kerosene or batteries.
30%. This is where I have to understand this. So 30% of their income was going to the kerosene or batteries.
Yes.
Okay, so you saw this. A lot of people see, many of us have traveled the world. Many of people have seen a lot of things.
Yes.
What happened? Why you? How did this start? I mean, your background is high-end jewelry. You're a mom with 5 boys, okay, that's a little bit of a busy life.
Yeah, it was definitely a busy life with 5 boys, but I just came back and I kept thinking about the mothers and I just felt like this should not people should do something. And I finally just I can't really explain it besides a calling, a feeling of compelled to do something. And finally in 2012 I thought, you know what? I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. And I had this big vision, but I just had to take the first step. And it was all of those little steps, registering with the state of Illinois and then sharing my big vision with people and deciding to go back to the Philippines and all of those little things, and then really for me, getting over the imposter syndrome. Because as a mom, right, was a stay-at-home for 17 years and feeling comfortable in this new position that I felt that I was supposed to go into.
So share a little bit about, okay, you developed this light. You
Mhm.
said got a patent, immediately
Yes.
filed for a patent, which is brilliant, by the way, and a big applause for you on that. Share a little bit about giving out those first lights. What was that like, and how did you do that?
Yeah. So the very first light that I gave out was to an older woman in the Philippines. And when we gave her the light, she said, this I am too poor. I cannot accept this light. I am too poor for you to love me. And I
Mm.
didn't realize that giving somebody a solar light, that the impact that this would have not only on, their heart, their mind, their home. And, we said, no, Nine, you're exactly why we're here. You're seen, you're loved, and you're valuable. And I think Watts of Love, the light is just one small part of what we do. It's really just the tool that people can use to break that cycle of poverty, educate their children. Women can now become entrepreneurs because they have a light, but then it's also the way that we distribute and teach is about a feeling, and people are
So,
seen and loved.
yeah, so I want to go here for a second. Okay, so first, this woman felt that she is too poor to accept something,
Yes.
which is one of the things that has to change is our women and self-esteem.
Hmm.
So that's one thing. I want to go for a second because you designed the light with a methodology that gives the trajectory to really eliminate poverty. So share a little bit. So they were spending 30% of whatever was coming into their home on kerosene or batteries. So the
Yes.
light is designed. Can you share how it's designed and then what you teach? Because I think there's a lot of people who we take step one and we try to fix something, but you
Mhm.
didn't just take step one with Watts of Love, Nancy. You took step one, two, and three, giving the ability to create a full cycle. So share a little bit, because this is one of the parts, many parts have fascinated me, but this is like one of the parts that was a huge drop my jaw.
So I'm going to start with the financial literacy because that was really the first step. That once I saw they were spending so much money and that people didn't understand savings, they also didn't have access to any bank. They had never even heard to save. Like that even concept was foreign. So I wanted to create something, especially for women with no education. They can't count and they can't read, or no formal education. And so I came up with a program like with pictures and storytelling because that's something that they could understand, and examples of other women that became successful. So I came up with this financial literacy, and it's at step by step. Within, every day you start saving your money. Within 7 days, you can buy a chicken. And then another 7 days, you buy another chicken. And then you go to graduate to a pig, to a goat, to a cow. And it's those steps that they may not understand how they're going to be able to feed their family or how they're going to be able to educate. Our goal in the teaching is those first 7 days. Save your money, buy a chicken, it starts to multiply. And that they can grasp. And then they have vision for the future. So when I realized that women could take control of their finances, take
Right.
control of the education, I thought the last thing I want to do is walk away and the light breaks,
Ooh,
because now they're going to be plummeted into, despair, and it just even worse
exactly.
than how I found them. So through that process, I noticed, the harsh environment, maybe 26 hurricanes a year, like in the Philippines. They live in bamboo huts, dirt floors, the harshest environment in the world. So when I came home, I wanted to create something for them. So it had to be worn around the neck so they don't have it, it's not going to be stolen. I wanted it on a lanyard so they could put it around their head so it becomes a headlamp, and hands free so you can care for your
You
children.
could so you could do what you take care of your family, do what you need to, even if it's cooking, what it take care of your loved ones.
Yes, and you don't realize how important hands free. And then also, I created a large button because I was in a leper colony in Kathmandu, Nepal, and people didn't have their fingers. Like all of their fingers and things had fallen apart. So I eliminated the button, and I had a touch on the large screen. So everything about the light was designed looking at their problems and the environment. And then I was able to come back and create a very small, extremely bright I say I'm the Cartier of free lighting because
I love it.
the best investment in the world is the ultra poor. Because if we can change a woman's life who's not sending their children to school, who can barely feed her children, and now she has the ability to create a business, even if it's sleeping mats or, bamboo barbecue sticks, she now has the ability with a bright light to generate income and then also save the money that she was spending on batteries is the best investment in the world.
And it's in the part of the light is for where they put their savings.
Yes, so that was in the
I
design
thought that
class.
was brilliant. I thought that was a such a thought through, very often we'll say like don't forget the details or like, the riches are in the details, but then you also say like, oh, don't get lost in the weeds of the details.
Yes.
In this case, this detail is one of the game changers, giving the women the ability to care for their families
Yeah,
and
and
take
so
control of the financial literacy piece.
it's funny because when I was designing the light, we were talking about it. Everybody's like, get rid of the box because you can fit, more lights in a box if we get rid of it. And I said, No, you don't understand because when we hand out the light, the person's name is called. They come up and they receive that box. And it's probably the first time they've seen a box. They don't know how to open the box. It again is about a feeling, not just handing out a bunch of lights. And then I thought, okay, if we're going to use this in the ceremony, now we need to use it. It needs to be used beyond that day. And
Right.
so I put a slit in the top. Again, when we show them to put the money inside of the box, the community, you probably have about 200, 300 families, they start clapping. The reaction to putting money in a box, everyone starts clapping because they've never seen that before. So
Number
it's,
one in financial literacy, put
yep,
something aside.
yes.
I love it. So share with our listeners where Watts of Love is today and then the vision of where it's going.
Yes.
We'll talk about that.
So for the first quite a few years, we were kind of in 1,000 lights here, 1,000 lights there. We're in 54 different countries throughout the world. And right before COVID, little did I know COVID was happening. I wasn't having the impact on the communities that I wanted. It was good, but I was looking for transformational. So I
Gotcha.
narrowed my focus, took the entire world, look at who is the least electrified, poorest nations. Malawi was one of those top countries. And I thought, okay, I'm going to create something like a franchise model for scale. It's going to be all about local leadership, not about Americans coming in. We're going to raise up women who have pulled themselves out of poverty. They are going to become the example for the next community and the next. So I came up with this whole franchise model, like how do you distribute? How do you teach? How do you all of these things? Launched it right before COVID. So when the whole world shut down, we were ready to scale. And it is remarkable to see. So, all of that to say, we are in Malawi, Kenya, Zambia, Philippines, and Uganda. Those are our areas of focus. But right now, number one is Malawi. And I believe in the next 4 years, we will impact over 2 million people with what we have put together, this scaling initiative in the last year. We will impact 15% of the nation, which is over 2 million people. So we have the infrastructure, the product, and the ability to impact 15% of the poorest people on the planet.
Okay, so let's talk about the business side of this, as this is her success story, and we look at leadership and business. And my first instinct is, wow, to impact 2 million people, you need a lot of money.
Yeah.
I got to say that. You're right. Right. So, can you share financially,
Yeah.
what a light costs and how you're working with raising and developing to get this out there? Because there's a lot of organizations now. Everybody's vying for capital, everybody's vying for money and donations. What is unique about Watts of Love and how you're approaching this?
Absolutely. So when we fundraise, it's per household, per family. So it's $50 for the education. It's the whole program, which is we employ the local women, we pay for all international shipping, the solar lights. It is a very robust program. Our lights are expected to last at least 10 years.
Wow,
Yes. So we have
that's
we
huge.
so if you look at ROI, the first year the family saves $155. $155 times 20,000 lights. So a community is about 20,000 the first year. The money that is saved and recaptured is $3.1 million. So we've done monitoring and evaluation. I am so excited when people ask these questions because we have a very light touch, but the impact and the monitoring and evaluation that we have is generational. So we have years later that we have the data to prove our impact.
I'm floored, I have to say. What do you do? I know you do a lot of speaking.
Mhm.
What do you do for raising money? What do you do for raising capital? It's you're raising it for one family at a time. And listeners, here we do a lot of nonprofit, and this is again our seventh year, and we have wonderful nonprofits to give to. It's interesting. $50 makes a difference.
It-
That's
um,
minimal.
I just want to say, like, sometimes I'm just in awe of the people that, because even if the light is broken, stolen, sold, right? We're human.
Things
It's
happen.
human nature, right? But years later, we've gone back and interviewed the families, and they say, that's okay. It broke, but I understood what it took for me to buy a chicken and buy a goat. I'm going to sell a chicken and buy another solar light. What we're interested in is that transformational shift in their thinking. And then they've have the chickens, and they've taken that first few steps where they have the animals to sell, and they continue to multiply, and they can make other choices.
A large part of the education you're doing is it's trickling down to their children and education.
Oh, absolutely.
So I have to ask you something. You're a stay-at-home, your background is high-end jewelry, not nonprofits. You're a stay-at-home mom with five boys, which is a hell of a active household, I've got to say. What drove you to keep going? Because there's the idea, right? Of like, I could do something. And then I'm complete transparency. Life gets busy for all of us. What was it that continued to show up for you that drove you to take the steps that were not necessarily in your comfort zone? It was not a knowledge base.
Yeah, no, it was definitely not a knowledge base. It's never easy. But when I saw what women could do with a small opportunity, I couldn't come back and unhear and unsee the impact that one small solar light had, not only on that one woman, but her entire family, generationally, the impact. And that's what compelled me. Like, there's really hard days. I'm not a I wasn't a businesswoman.
You didn't come in it with a businesswoman's background on how to run a business. You're a businesswoman now, but you didn't come in with the background. Let's call a
Right.
spade a spade.
And they're not either, right? So I'm asking them to be businesswomen. I'm like, start a business. You have a light. You can now start working. You can save your money. It was the same principles that I was asking them to do, that I had to apply to myself, and not give up on me. I couldn't give up on myself, and I couldn't give up on them. And giving people the ability to join me, an invitation in, like, come be a part of this, sponsor a family, sponsor a community, or come with us and come see and still sponsor a family. So it's never easy. But when you see impact, it motivates you to keep going.
What has surprised you in this journey? I have to ask Nancy.
I think it's people's willingness to help. So people say, hey, what do you need? And my answer is, what are you passionate about?
Right.
What are your giftings that when you look at me or hear our story, that like, hey, I've got a manufacturing company. I have a box, like, or, and we've been blessed. Like, people have resources. Let me sponsor, let me come alongside of, I hear your dream, I hear your vision, and I'm going to financially stand next to you and watch this happen. So there's so many people that have I'm just going to share one quick story.
Sure.
When I started, I wanted to be in downtown Downers Grove because it was near my children and I was still like in mom mode. And I found a building that was for sale and we didn't have any money. And I went to the owner and I said, "You know what? I really would like for you to donate this entire building to us. And these are the people you're serving. This is the home that would allow me to have a deeper reach." And you know what? We got the whole building. I never met the man. He lived in Florida. And so this is where I learned the lesson that you can give something to somebody. And every day I walk in that building and I'm so grateful. Number one, that he didn't make me pay and struggle and
Right.
strain financially, but he said, "I believe in your mission and here I am." So, yeah.
Last question. What advice would you share forward, or what tips would you share forward if for the people out there that have that idea or see something and they say, oh, maybe, I could do something. I have this idea. Where do I start? What do I do?
So I think it's just taking that very first step. For me, I came up with the name and I started talking about it. It's called Lots of Love. And it's all of those little steps, even though I had a big vision, don't get bogged down in your big vision, but it's those little steps. And you know what? It's okay to pivot left or right, but just take that first step, believe in yourself. Yeah.
And I cannot agree more. I'll always say success is the culmination of a lot of baby steps. It's not about a giant step. It's about getting up every day and doing a baby step.
And I'm just going to say one more thing.
Yeah.
I was 47 years old when most women are done kind of raising children and we kind of
Kind of think about other things at that point.
correct. And I completely reinvented myself. So, what I'm saying, I think we are more powerful and determined, and we have the ability to transform the world. We just have to take that first step.
I cannot agree with you more. And on that note, I will share. I was 45 years old when I got this idea of starting this company and walking away from a 7-figure business saying, I'm not fulfilled. I make a hell of a living, but there's more that I need to do in my life that is meaningful
Yes.
and I have to accomplish. And I'm looking forward to the next 10 years together as we continue down this journey.
Yes. Yeah.
Nancy, share with our listeners how can they check out Watts of Love and learn more about it and become more involved in the organization?
Absolutely. So it's www.wattsoflove.org. It's WATTS, Watts, like in electric, wattsoflove.org.
I love it. And listeners, thank you for joining Nancy and I today. This is the nonprofit series. If you're enjoying it, if you're into nonprofits, if you want to learn more about leadership in nonprofits, please check out this series and feel free to go back to our past 6. We started this in 2018. My goodness. And it's been a joy to getting to know nonprofit leaders, to getting to know people who are making a difference and being able to support them in any way we can. And sometimes it's just showing up, listening. And if this made an impact on you, share this forward to others. Thank you for joining me here today. And I will see you next time with more great interviews during our nonprofit series. Thank you.